Tell me when you're ready. Yeah, ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right, guys, this is Health Nibble number 66, and it's about X-ray exposure. And I'm not in my office where I actually have the books and the research and things like that. But one thing, there's a myth that lots of X-rays is going to give you cancer, like getting X-rays in chiropractic offices is going to give you cancer. And you know, the truth is that the X-ray exposure is about the same that you would get if you flew in a plane. But you know, so that's one point. The other point is I want to talk about flawed research and where some of these things come from and why, there's research out there that don't know where it comes from. So one of the things is that the more X-ray exposure you get over a lifetime increases your risk. And so, Kiefer, if you can look here. So this is called the linear model. And so basically what it was is you get exposed. So here's health risk, right? Here's the health risk line. And the more you get exposed to X-ray, the increased risk for health problems there is, right? So here's X-ray exposure. And so, back to me, Kiefer. So, where this model came from was at the low end is zero exposure, and then at the high end was exposure in World War II, where we had used nuclear weapons, and so they see the health deficit that came from radiation exposure in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So, so basically, you have 2 points, and then they just bring the points together and come up with a model that the more exposure you have, the worse risk you have. So, does that seem like good science to you? Absolutely not. There's a huge gap between the starting point and the ending point. And so there's a more valid model called X-ray hormesis. And so if we take this same graph, so if you look up the word hormesis, it actually, are you filming me at all?
Oh, yeah.
So why don't you film both of them?
Okay.
So with X-ray hormesis, hormesis means there's like some sort of a positive benefit from it. So if you look here and you look at health risk, can you see that graph, Kiefer?
I think so.
Okay. Here's your X-ray exposure. What it showed was you actually have a dip, so some benefit, and then it moves up. And so this has actually been validated between the 2 points with more studies than this. So it brings up 2 points. One, this is near and dear to my heart because the ACA is a big organization, one of the governing bodies of my profession, and they've actually talked about they have a stance of less X-rays, and in my profession or in the way that I approach chiropractic is spine correction. So X-rays are so important, and there's so many things that you miss when you don't take X-rays, and the dose of radiation really isn't very high at all. And in fact, in this model, it's showing no risk. I mean, I fly around the country with my kids all the time on planes, and they get X-ray exposure just from being up in the atmosphere, which is similar to taking X-rays. So if there's going to be, some exposure with all of this benefit, we're looking at spine structure and spine function, it completely makes sense to do that. So that's the first point that's near and dear to my heart with chiropractic. The other thing is that I want you to understand that the governing bodies in all professions, whether it's the American Cancer Association, the American Heart Association, which I'm going to counter a lot of stuff that they talk about with diet and fat, with dentistry, with chiropractic, with all these big organizations are really pressured by big business and with political stuff. And so everything that I bring to you is not going to be, this is because, what an organization said. What I'm bringing to you is this is what the science shows, because what we're dedicated to is the patient's health, not to our big organizations that are influenced by bigger organizations. So anyway, with X-ray, you get some normal plain films. Now getting CTs, that's a much higher dosage all at once of X-rays, but so maybe we'll talk about that in a different health nibble, but just plain films, getting your spine evaluated for a structural correction, minimal X-ray exposure, similar to what you get on a plane. That's your health nibble.